Throughout much of the 20th century, the Soviet Union's super spy agency, known as the KGB, had in its possession thousands of secrets gained through covert intelligence operations.
The U.S. Embassy staff falls ill for no apparent reason. The CIA opens Project Pandora to investigate. Nina Kulagina attracts the attention of the KGB with her psychokinetic skills. The KGB launches an investigation into poltergeist activity.
KGB was trying to create so-called zombie agents who would be sent to foreign countries without realizing that they were Soviet agents.
Throughout history, people have asked the question, is there more to our world than just what is perceived with our five senses? Do some persons possess a psychic ability? Do spirits exist as ghosts or in other forms? Is the paranormal fact or fantasy? Well, now, perhaps thanks to the Russians, we're much closer to answering these age-old questions. While most Western scientists scoff at the mention of psychic and paranormal phenomena, in Russia, the study of the paranormal has been taken very seriously, so seriously that it warranted the attention of what was once the most powerful intelligence agency in the world, the KGB. And now, after the demise of the Soviet Union, much of this super-secret information is coming to light, including some astounding revelations known only to the KGB. I'm Roger Moore. Join us as we explore the secret KGB Paranormal Files.
The United States and the Soviet Union have been on opposite ideological sides since they battled over Berlin after World War II. This dispute between the two superpowers evolved into the Cold War. An imaginary line now divided the world into two distinct parts, the Soviets on one side, the United States and its allies on the other. There were no concrete battlefields in this new war. Rather, each country proved its strength through the build-up of their nuclear arsenals and advancements in technology. With the arms race in high gear, secret information became a valuable currency in which to trade, and espionage seemed to be the modus operandi. But the Soviets took their intelligence efforts a step further to paranormal espionage. Case in point, the American Embassy in Moscow, a repository of top-secret information. But outside those walls, agents of the KGB turned the embassy into a testing ground for new and more subtle forms of espionage. In 1962, a series of strange and unexplained illnesses plagued the embassy staff.
3 ambassadors in a row went home sick with cancer, and then many of the staff all became very ill, depressed, disoriented, feeling very sick, and quite a few of them had to also be recalled because of illness.
Naturally, the CIA's suspicions were aroused. Project Pandora, the CIA's investigation into the source of these strange ailments, uncovered what agents called the Moscow signal. A pulsing beam of microwave energy directed at the embassy from a building just across the street. Investigators were further alarmed to find that the beam was focused directly on the office of the ambassador himself, Walter Stossel. Reports of the ambassador's health indicated that the beam was having a profound physical effect. Despite American protests and attempts to shield the building, this irradiation of the embassy continued.
When Nixon and his party were visiting there, apparently they began to experience all kinds of symptoms of severe depression and crying fit. And it wasn't just one, it was virtually everyone in the group that was visiting.
An analysis of the microwave beam revealed frequencies known to affect human behavior. American intelligence agencies recognized the pattern from their own simple experiments performed on animals. But this was something much more advanced. This evidence pointed to a microwave emitter used for the purpose of mind control. As these experiments went on, a network of Soviet spies began to gather information from their contacts inside Western governments. Even the President of the United States was not immune.
What was once one of the most feared intelligence agencies in the world was also the largest. At its peak, the KGB had literally thousands of operatives working both within the Soviet Union and everywhere else on the planet.
The Russian Revolution of October 1917 put a violent end to the monarchy of Tsar Nicholas and ushered in a new era of oppressive Soviet dictators. The man who led the revolution, Vladimir Lenin, rose to power, the first in a long line of iron-fisted dictators. During his reign, the powerful OGPU, or secret police, was formed for the purpose of international espionage. The group of secret police became the infamous KGB.
The KGB research into the anomalous phenomena had begun in the 1920s, when a special laboratory, so-called dark room, was created. From the middle 1930s, Russian psychics had been persecuted under Stalinist regime, so many went underground. Most had conducted their research, but very quietly.
In the late 1920s, Joseph Stalin transformed the country even more by regimenting every aspect of daily life.
It goes back to such scientists as Bekhterev and his research, and continues through the Gleb Boki control of the KGB Paranormal Research right into the Beria's lab. Gleb Boki, who was in charge of the paranormal phenomena for the KGB, was a sinister and cruel person who was known to drink human blood. The KGB had conducted psychotronic weapons research on prisoners that were sentenced to die, and also political dissidents.
Stalin still managed to brutally stomp out his opposition.
When Gleb Boki and people who had studied the anomalous phenomena with him in the KGB were executed in 1937, all of the files were transferred, as far as we know, to the most secret archives of the KGB, and later were acquired by Beria. Some of the files were opened by Beria's people, and the research took very sinister color. When Stalin died, there was a time of chaos in the Soviet Union. Some files of the paranormal were lost. Some were transferred to the dungeons of the KGB. However, the paranormal research went on. Under Khrushchev, great successes had been achieved in the Soviet Union with the paranormal. Some of the first biogenerators and machines to alter human minds came to the scene. The Americans were worried about Soviet research programs because they knew that the Soviet Union would not use it for peaceful means, that the Soviet Union was there to conquer and to overtake the United States.
As the century came to an end, so did the power of the Communist Party. By obtaining top-secret KGB files of paranormal research, we are now learning just how far the Soviets went in their research and how they may have used it against their Western adversaries.
The microwave bombardment of the U.S. Embassy in Moscow was just one example of the KGB's employment of paranormal tools. But interest in this field dates much further back to an unlikely source. The man who banned the practice of the paranormal and persecuted those who practiced any form of psychic manipulation, Joseph Stalin.
In uncovered KGB files, the first name to appear was that of Wolf Messing.
Wolf Messing was a fabulous character. He started out in Germany. He then became known as probably the most famous psychic in Europe in the 20s, the 30s. There are a couple famous tests, and one kind of delicious one was he was tested by Einstein and Freud.
In an historic meeting, Messing was invited to demonstrate his mental abilities.
And as the story goes, they were in Einstein's apartment, and he said, "Okay, Dr. Freud, send me a telepathic message of what you want me to do." And he thought for a minute, and then he went into the bathroom, opened the cupboard, took out some tweezers, went back into the living room and said to Einstein, "Oh, excuse me, Herr Professor," and plucked a hair out of his mustache. And Freud said that was exactly what he had asked him to do.
Messing became quite famous for his psychic abilities. He even went as far as to predict the outbreak of war between the Soviets and the Germans, despite Stalin's infamous non-aggression treaty with the Nazis. He also predicted the end of the war to the month and the death of Germany's Führer. In light of his reputation, people began to take these predictions more seriously, especially the occult-obsessed Adolf Hitler, who put a 200,000-mark bounty on Messing's head. The world-renowned psychic was forced to flee to Russia, where Joseph Stalin himself became interested in the possible military applications of Messing's abilities. But first, Stalin wanted to test Messing for himself.
One night when Messing was performing in a little border town, they came and took him to see someone. It turned out to be Stalin. And Stalin gave him two tasks to do. One was to rob a bank by psychic means.
Of course, Messing had no account at the bank. His challenge was to withdraw the money using only his psychic powers of influence over the teller's mind. Messing handed him a blank slip of paper and then mentally willed the teller to withdraw 100,000 rubles. Convinced he was looking at a certified withdrawal form, the teller walked to the safe to retrieve the money, and as Stalin's KGB observer watched, the teller returned with bundles of currency and began handing them over to Messing, totally unaware that his own will was in Messing's control. When the money was safely inside, Messing thanked the teller, shut the case, and calmly walked out of the bank.
That was test number one, which he passed. And later, apparently, the teller had a heart attack and Messing felt terrible, but the teller lived.
Stalin arranged another test. Messing was to slip past the highly trained soldiers surrounding Stalin's private dacha and drop in on the Soviet leader unannounced. A short while after this challenge was issued, something remarkable occurred. A civilian man offering no pass or pretext made his way into the grounds of Stalin's dacha. Walking past the first ring of guards, he proceeded toward the building and casually walked inside. The guards did not challenge him. In fact, they stood at a respectful distance as he passed. As he made his way through the dacha's corridors, the staff offered no resistance. He had nearly made it all the way to Stalin's inner sanctum where even the servants were veteran secret police officers. Stalin looked up to find the man standing in front of him, Wolf Messing. Stalin demanded to know how it was done. Messing explained that he projected a single thought into the minds of Stalin's guards and staff. I am Beria, the notorious head of the secret police, who none of the guards would ever attempt to stop. He had passed Stalin's test.
Stalin was very much interested in Wolf Messing's abilities to harness him as a way to control, to find out how he controlled more people, and perhaps to use Wolf Messing to find out what Stalin's henchmen were really thinking or plotting against him.
Did Wolf Messing go on to serve Joseph Stalin as a psychic spy?
Stalin tested Wolf Messing to many ways. You need to understand, most of this information is still classified and locked away in Soviet archives.
What we know for certain is that in 1967, Wolf Messing arranged to publish a full account of his life's work. But following an announcement of its publication, the manuscript was quietly buried.
After the initial success with psychic tests, the KGB began to take a more active interest in the paranormal, setting up top-secret research facilities across the Soviet Union. Behind the walls of these facilities, they conducted classified experiments with individuals of frightening psychic ability.
Nina Kulagina, alias Nina Melekilova, was the Soviet Union's preeminent telekinetic medium. Her psychic feats were well documented by these home movies and captured by Russian scientists on the secret films you are about to see. By focusing her will upon a target object, Kulagina was able to move objects weighing as much as 1 pound with only the raw power of her mind. During these experiments, she claimed to feel a sharp pain in her spine, and scientists recorded her blood pressure racing up to 180 beats per minute, approximately 70 points higher than a runner during a race. Startled scientists suggested that in Kulagina's case, the electromagnetic energy normally emitted from the living tissue was greatly amplified. By placing her hands in close proximity to a target object, this energy field was actually able to move it.
She was taken to various laboratories throughout the Soviet Union to be measured, studied, researched, and the KGB was behind it as far as